Welcome to the Explainer. So, if you're a parent, caregiver, or educator in New Mexico, stepping into the world of special education can literally feel like you're drowning in alphabet soup, right? We've got IEP, 504, IDEA, PED. It's completely overwhelming. But hey, you are absolutely in the right place. Today, we're going to demystify this entire framework. Our goal is super simple. We want to empower you by transforming this massive web of legal jargon into clear, actionable knowledge. By the end of our time together, you're going to know exactly how to advocate for the student in your life. Let's get into it. Here's our map for today. We'll be decoding special education, breaking down IEPs versus 504 plans, walking through the evaluation process, answering common parent questions, and finally leaving you with some practical tips for families. All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, Decoding Special Education. So the absolutely crucial starting point is IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. Think of IDEA as this massive federal engine that drives specialized instruction across the entire country. It's the nationwide baseline. It basically states that students with qualifying disabilities have a fundamental right to specially designed instruction to meet their unique needs. But, federal law is really only half the story. Because here's the thing, New Mexico takes that federal engine and adds its own steering wheel. While that overarching framework applies nationwide, schools right here in New Mexico operate using state-specific guidance from the Public Education Department alongside their own procedural safeguards and local district policies. In practice, this means you can't just memorize the federal rights. You really have to understand how your local district and the state of New Mexico put them into practice on the ground. Moving right along to Section 2, IEP versus 504 plans. Now, this is where so many folks get tripped up, but the core difference really comes down to this one simple concept. An IEP changes how a child is taught through specially designed instruction. A 504 plan, on the other hand, changes how a child accesses that instruction through accommodations. The 504 plan actually stems from Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, and it's meant for students with a disability that limits a major life activity. It just ensures they can access school exactly like their peers. Let's break down that IEP just a little further. An individualized education program is not just a list of helpful suggestions. No way. It's a robust, legally binding document. It details exactly where the student is right now, which they call present levels of performance. It lays out specific annual goals, dictates the exact services and supports they're going to receive, and critically, it establishes measurable metrics for how progress is going to be tracked. It is essentially a highly customized roadmap for learning. Now contrast that with a 504 plan, which is fundamentally a civil rights protection. This is usually for a student who doesn't necessarily need specialized instruction, but they absolutely need equal access to the school program. It levels the playing field with common accommodations. We're talking things like getting extended time on a test, moving to preferential seating at the front of the room, taking scheduled sensory breaks, using assistive technology, or receiving health-related supports. That brings us to Section 3, the evaluation process. So how does this actually happen? Well, the timeline builds directly from Step 1, a formal written request from you, the parent, or a recommendation from the school. Step 2 is incredibly vital. The school must issue procedural safeguards. These are the formal rights and notices you receive as a parent. Step 3 involves gathering all the actual evaluation data. And finally, Step 4 is where the team, which absolutely includes you as the guardian, by the way, sits down to make a decision on the student's needs. Now, I really want to point out a highly surprising fact that trips up so many families. Just having a medical diagnosis, whether it's ADHD, dyslexia, autism, or a specific health condition, does not automatically guarantee an IEP. It's a huge misconception. Eligibility is actually based on an evaluation of how that disability specifically affects the child's school performance. The team has to look at the data to determine if specially designed instruction is genuinely required to overcome that educational impact. And honestly, here is where New Mexico's specific approach really shines. The state places a massive focus on educational equity. Through specific state accountability resources, New Mexico emphasizes that access isn't just about handing a student a service. It means curriculum and classroom materials must be high quality, as well as culturally and linguistically relevant. It ensures those instructional materials are genuinely usable for your specific child, treating special education not as some afterthought, but as a core pillar of school improvement. All right, Section 4, Common Parent Questions. Let's tackle some of the big ones. This first one is a question we see all the time, especially with the unique educational landscape here in the state. Parents always ask, Do charter schools in New Mexico actually have to follow all these special education rules, or can they somehow opt out? Well, the answer is an emphatic yes. Public charter schools in New Mexico are generally bound by the exact same special education and Section 504 obligations as traditional public schools. They must follow the federal IDEA rules and the state's Special Education Policies and Procedures Manual. Your child's rights absolutely do not disappear the moment they enroll in a charter school. Okay, here is another incredibly high-stress situation for caregivers. You sit down at the team meeting, look at the evaluation or the proposed plan, and you completely disagree with the school team's decision. What real power do you actually have in that room? And this right here brilliantly illustrates the real power of those procedural safeguards we talked about earlier. You are not stuck. You have actionable rights. You can demand more information in writing. You can request another formal meeting. You can seek an independent educational evaluation, or you can even utilize state and federal dispute resolution options. That procedural safeguards document you receive, it exists specifically to explain these exact rights to you. Here's another highly technical but super important question. Can a student hold both an individualized education program and a 504 plan at the exact same time? The short answer is that usually the IEP is the primary comprehensive document. Because an IEP is so robust, it typically covers all the accommodations a 504 would provide, right alongside the specialized instruction. However, depending on incredibly specific, unique circumstances, a student might have additional protections or related plans. The key takeaway here is ensuring every single need is documented, which usually culminates under the umbrella of the IEP if they qualify for special education. Finally, Section 5, practical tips for families. So, the most crucial tip I can give you is to stay obsessively organized. Save every single email, evaluation report, and meeting notice. When you have a concern, write it down with a specific date and a concrete example. If there's a disconnect between school and home, clearly describe what behaviors you see at home versus what the school claims to see in class. Most importantly, focus your conversations purely on the barrier to learning rather than getting too hung up on a specific diagnostic label. Ask the team, what exactly is the barrier here, and what support is going to remove it? Please remember this concept even if you forget everything else from today. These plans are living documents. An IEP or a 504 plan is never, ever carved in stone. They're not permanent. If a support isn't working out, or, hey, if your child suddenly improves and needs different challenges, you can and absolutely should request a review to revise the plan. You have the right to keep that plan perfectly matched to your child's current reality. This quote really captures the ultimate takeaway of our entire explainer. The goal is not paperwork for its own sake. The goal is meaningful access to education. I love that. All of these meetings, all of the confusing acronyms, all the procedural safeguards we've discussed, they all serve one singular, vital purpose: making sure your child and every single student with a disability in New Mexico can fully participate and make genuine progress in school. I want to leave you with a question to kickstart your own advocacy journey. Look closely at your own child's situation. What specific barrier is standing in the way of your child's learning right now, and exactly what support will remove it? Answer that question and you'll know exactly what to ask for at your next meeting. Thank you so much for joining me to explore this vital topic. Now, go take that first step.